Ladies and gentlemen, may I have your attention, please?
Please take your seats and fasten your seatbelts.
Flight crew, please prepare for takeoff.
Flight 229, you're clear for departure.
Thank you and enjoy your flight.
Hello, everyone. My name is Graham Mann, and this is the Business Aviation Podcast. On this podcast, we interview business aviation professionals with all sorts of backgrounds to learn about experiences, tips, and best practices to be successful. Today's guest is B-Rad Elliott, who is general manager at the Desert Jet Center FBO, which he was involved in opening, and he is also a Bahamas Flying Ambassador. He's been in business aviation for 16 years, including positions in customer service, marketing, sales, and more. He's planned trips around the world in small private jets and turboprops, has a private pilot license, and has volunteered in various capacities in aviation, including serving on the NBAA S&D Committee for 4 years, setting up static displays at various conferences, and being involved with many aviation charities. In this episode, we cover how he got his start in aviation, some of the key skills that have helped him be successful in his career, how service has changed in business aviation, some of his favorite business resources, and more. Make sure to check out the show notes for details and links from the conversation at leansystems.co/podcast. Please enjoy this episode with Brad Elliott. Hey, Brad, thanks for being here today.
My pleasure, Graham.
So I have to ask, first of all, where does the nickname B-Rad come from?
Oh, beautiful. Oh, man. Let's see here. Let's go back about 14 years. I was working the line service at the Showalter Flying Service at Orlando Executive. It's a family-owned FBO. Great family in the industry. They had the business for 70 years. And it's, like I said, a family-owned business. They had their grandson come in the facility, and we had on-site daycare, all that good stuff. Jenny Showalter's son, Evan, came up, and I'd always say goodbye because he was in the lobby, so he'd leave, and I always say I was always as fun as I could be with, and it's a ton of fun in that company, but I would say, peace out, Evan, and he couldn't say Brad. It always came out B-Rad, and long story short, it caught on, and the Showalters are pretty well known in the industry, so I would tag along with them at conferences and where have you, and B-Rad just stuck with them. And it stuck with me, and so on. So it is the best icebreaker at all the conventions that I go to. I wear it proudly, so I am B-Rad.
That is a good origin story. I don't know if you've ever seen there's a College Humor video basically on nicknames, but it's similar. I'll have to send it to you. So that's a good segue. I think you got your start in aviation with Showalter and what you call your Showalter family. So tell me how that opportunity first came up and why you decided to get involved in aviation.
Amazingly, when I was in the fourth grade, I watched the movie Top Gun and just fell in love with aviation immediately. I just wanted to be a pilot. Continued school, graduated high school, moved to Orlando right away, and started looking at schools and seeing, how to get my break to become a pilot. And I just, so I randomly figured, what's the best way to get in aviation is to work in aviation. So I went in and put an application in and at a few FBOs there in Orlando. And right away, Showalter's grabbed me and got me back in for interview and hired me right up on pretty much really fast. And so I was 19 at the time. I didn't know anything about aviation. I just knew that I was passionate, had a passion, and I wanted to be more part of it. So they gave me an opportunity. They trained me. Time ticked on. As I'm working the FBO, I started meeting a lot more pilots, and I learned the folks in the back of the plane were much happier than the guys in the front of the plane. So I changed my career. I went to UCF and said I'm going to go to school for marketing. So changed my route, went to the business side. 6 months before I graduated, Showalter's created a marketing position for me, which I was back in 2006. I I jumped at the bit to stay in the industry. I love the people in corporate aviation. It's just it's everybody's so nice and helping. They want to see you grow. They want to see professional growth, and they want to keep people in the industry. It's a small family for everybody knows everybody, and it's business gets done on relationship side, and I knew that's I found my way. So from that direction on, that's kind of how everything came to be with the little marketing, the business side, and I still always wanted to be a pilot. So I had an opportunity that Showalter's paid my way for my pilot's license. So I went to a local school that was based with us and ended up getting my private pilot's license. So it's still able to do my passion, and now I get to go to work and be happy every day.
Yeah, no, that's amazing. And it sounds like Showalter was really great too, because you still were working with them while you were attending school as well, right?
Cool. Oh yeah. I was full-time line service, full-time school in college, and I wasn't making enough money, so I washed airplanes on the little downtime that I had. So I was cleaning planes with them as well. So it was a full load.
Yeah, no, that's fantastic. So was there a particular reason you chose to study marketing at college? Because they created the position sort of for you when you were done, but was that the plan all along, or was there some other reason you decided to study marketing?
No, not at all. It was, I always wanted to be a pilot, and I started to notice that, hey, this is maybe the on-call lifestyle. I had friends that were pilots, and they would lose their job or what have you, and I was like, you know what, this might not be the best route, and I started reading business books. I started listening to blogs or reading blogs, and I took one marketing class, and the teacher just clicked with me. He actually was a marketing person for director of marketing for a yacht company, and then retired and whatnot, and started teaching marketing class or intro to business class. And that, for whatever reason, that just kind of I was like, I implement what he did for yachting for aviation. So that's the relationship that I made. It just kind of clicked me, and I was like, you know what, this is actually a lot of fun. So that was the light bulb moment for me to go to marketing.
Right. And you mentioned you sort of wanted to replicate what he did in yachting and aviation. What were some of the principles or things that you wanted to apply that you learned from him?
It was just the reading about all the industry, where to find industry noted stuff, where to find what's happening, how to be, foresee the next level of promoting the business. So, I was able to apply that in the multi-world side before social media really caught on. There was very few folks in the private aviation industry that really adopted social media. A lot of the magazines did. Some of the operators, not a whole lot of folks. So Showalter being, it was 30 some odd folks. We were a one place FBO. We weren't a big company, but we had a lot of experience, a lot of reputation. We hosted the NBAA static displays, and so we were able to do a lot with a little and make ourselves bigger than what we really were. And social media allowed that, just to give that whole outside. The deal was like, hey, these two things, we have something here. So that was a really kicker.
Right. Cool. While you were also at Showalter, you got involved with the NBAA Schedulers and Dispatchers Committee, I think, as well. What made you want to get involved there?
Oh man, Showalter's, like I said, the reputation, it was amazing, and they were always outspoken about aviation. Bob Showalter was one of the first folks after 9/11 to go to Congress to speak for aviation when they shut us down for 2 weeks. Jenny Showalter, she was on she was on the committee for S&D for scheduling dispatchers, and then she became the chair of the scheduling dispatchers. So really introduced me. I followed her, and she really introduced me to the world of scheduling dispatchers and the importance and all the hard work that they do. And I, it made a lot of sense for me to also give my time back that I had back into the aviation world. And it was one of the best decisions I ever made with the becoming a committee member. I applied a few years and finally was allowed on, and never looked back. I did my 4-year term, and I miss it every day. It's a lot of fun. It's a lot of opportunity, a lot of career growth, a lot of networking. Just professionally, you work together with 30 or 32 other folks there, putting together an annual conference that is, right now I think it's about 3,000 attendance, and plus I think it's 300 to 500 exhibitors there as well. So it's NBAA's second largest conference they host.
Mm-hmm. Cool. So you mentioned too that, Showalter obviously was great, and they created the new position for you when you graduated college. So, I mean, they were obviously happy with what you'd been doing there and wanted to have you back. Why, or what do you think you did that helped you succeed in that first job?
I'll tell you, I took every opportunity I could. And this goes for I would say my whole professional path is I never really told anybody no. And I had an opportunity, someone has an opportunity or experience. I made it work. I said, yes, I have to do, change my schedule around, do whatever I can. I had to make it work. So I was like, that's when I look back on it, is that I was willing to do the work and I was willing to make it happen, and always able to say yes. So when someone gives you an opportunity, much like this podcast, don't turn it down. You don't know where it's going to take you, but the experience and the opportunities, it opens up so many more doors.
Yeah. What were some of the what were a couple examples of some of the opportunities you would have said yes to back then?
Well, when I was a member of the Scheduling Dispatchers Committee, I also had one of our clients was a dual citizen, Bahamas and U.S., and he was working with the government doing some projects over there. He got me involved with the Bahamas Ministry of Tourism, and he said, "Brad, you need to meet this guy, Greg Roll, with the Ministry of Tourism for the Bahamas. He's in the aviation side. You need to talk to him. A lot of your customers fly to the Bahamas all the time. You guys really should connect." So I said yes. I immediately said yes. And I sat down with him. I talked to him at Sun and Fun in Lakeland. And we started to put together there was an FBO gateway, Bahamas Gateway FBOs. Fort Lauderdale and Banyan was one of the first ones there. And we were the furthest north FBO that you could stop, get all your raft supplies, all the information to fly internationally that folks are scared to do in a small private airplane. That having an expert in that position that they created became a Bahamas Flying Ambassador. And I think there's 10 or so of us on this ambassador committee for the Bahamas that we were able to be reached out by general aviation across the nation and give them all the information and details of flying, to the Bahamas, all the information you need, walk them through it. And then we go to, we've gone to Oshkosh, we've gone to Sun and Fun. I've gone to flight schools. I've gone to other flying clubs and give presentations on flying the Bahamas. It just led to yes. Let me take this opportunity, and it keeps growing. And ultimately, that led me to become a flying ambassador. And we've done some pretty cool stuff with the Bahamas. Is that we had we'd go island hopping every summer, and we'd learn about all the islands. So we became experts of flying through the islands. And so when someone called and said, "Hey, I'm thinking about flying to Bahamas for either honeymoon or going out there to take I have a client that has a boat out there or what have you, but I've never been. And, the first time's always the scariest. So who can I call or who knows about this? And the word got around that, we had a number of ambassadors or FBOs that had all the information and could really just handhold you through the entire process. And that was, that's where that kind of led me for not saying no. That was one of the cool experiences that I've done.
Yeah, no, it sounds like a great opportunity. And are you still have that position, right? Or no?
Yeah. Yes, it's a volunteer position. I get calls and from folks. I had a call about 4 months ago from someone in Arizona that wants to fly to the Bahamas in a 172, and it's the hardest part is getting to Florida. It's going to take you, it's going to take you 15 hours just to get there,
right?
And then it's just an hour away.
Yeah, cool. So after Showalter, you went on to AJ Publications, I think, right?
Yeah, so it's Air Journey. Air Journey is also AJ Publications. They do magazines for the TBM Owners Pilot Association. Mm-hmm. They also do the magazine for the Plattis Owner and Pilot Association. And then they also have they work with the Phenom owners, and they put the Light Jet magazine together as well. But their main business is Air Journey that does. I would say it's a high-end travel agent that take care of all the flights around the world. If you're in a TBM, you want to take your plane around the world, you go to Air Journey and they'll take care of all your hotel reservations. They'll do all your flight planning. They really spoon feed all the information to you, make it the easiest way to go on any journey. They do a round the world trip in 76 days in small planes. They have a around South America. They do Africa. They do trips all over the world that are just incredible. And you have everything down to dinners, reservations that you make and planning, to hotels, to tours, to flight planning, everything on getting 5 airplanes around the world in 32 countries in 76 days. Everything was planned, is planned by those guys. I did that for a year, and it was one of the most hectic years of my life, but I learned a ton. Never look back on that one. That was a life learning experience there for sure.
Right.
Even still to this day, folks are asking me, "Hey, Brad's planning a trip to Africa. What does he know?" Which is great because I can just send an Air Journey now and say, you know what, it's too much. Just talk to these guys; they'll handle it all. So.
Okay, cool. So, just maybe take me through your thinking, I guess, when you decided to make the move to Air Journey.
So Showalter's, they ended up selling out after 7 years of business. I was looking to do a little bit more flying as well, and the opportunity at Air Journey is that you're also a pilot and you fly along those trips. So I had an opportunity to fly, 5 trips in that year. I went to the Eastern Caribbean with we took 12 TBMs Eastern Caribbean. I did a Bahamas trip we did 8 days in the Bahamas. I did 10 days in the Canadian Maritimes in the Northeast. There was opportunity to do some flying and learn a lot on that side. I didn't see my role was progressing as well. I knew that it was coming to an end. I worked for the Showalter. Sandy Showalter, he was my boss. Kim Showalter was his boss.
Right.
There's the progression there was there's not a lot left there, but and I knew it was kind of coming to an end on that side. So worked with them and worked with the Showalters, and they helped me through my career path as well. And decided, let's give this a shot. It's we'll see if it works out, and put everything, put my faith into it that I think is the right thing at the right time. And I was hoping to, progress through my flying as well, but I ended up being behind a desk planning trips the whole year and got 5 flights. I did 5 flights, but it wasn't the type of flying that I was really looking into. But I thought I was going to get a little more experience on the flying side, but I got a lot of experience on the scheduling and kind of the dispatching side of the operations side, which is, it's unsurmountable to take away to this day.
Right. So I've got to ask, because I'm from the Maritimes and I'm actually there right now. Where did you go in the Maritimes? Or
So
what was that trip like?
That trip was organized chaos because, as you know, the weather in that area. This was I think it was in September. It changes on you.
Hurricane season.
Yeah, it was just a mix of we ended up getting icing and rain, and so it was 10 days. It was supposed to start in Bar Harbor, Maine, then go to Prince Edward Island, then over to Sydney, down to Halifax, and spend time in those nice hotels and take the boat tours and go see all the fun things those towns have to see. It ended up being the weather moved in. Bar Harbor's hotel that we had, they ended up putting it under construction. So we changed to Quebec City, and we started in Quebec City, stayed at the Chateau Frontenac, which was amazing starting there. And then we were supposed to head to Prince Edward Island next as originally planned, but we had icing move in between us, and we had 4 or 5 airplanes in that trip, and one of them had icing boots, 2 of them were pressurized, and 3 of them, were kind of at the will of what Mother Nature was to do. We were in the only twin airplane, and it had no de-icing boots, and we were the slowest airplane in that round. We ended up going to Halifax, and oh man, the Halifax trip. Halifax at that time, so we switched from Prince Edward Island to Halifax, and it was the government. There was some kind of government convention going in town, so all the government across Canada had booked up all the hotels, and we had these folks on, this very high end trip, and we ended up getting decent accommodations, and we ended up doing some of the most amazing dinners. We spent a little more time in Halifax. It was rainy. We did some trips all over. The tours were just great. And then from there we went to Sydney, and then we weren't able to put in Prince Edward Island. I was a little disappointed, but I ate my way in oysters around that trip for sure.
Yeah, that sounds like a very Maritimes trip. Are you a golfer?
Well, I lived in Florida all my life, so I would say I golf. I'm not very good, but I love playing, and I love making everybody else feel better about their game.
I was just going to say PEI is fantastic for golf, but yeah, I'm somewhere similar in terms of golf skill.
Sure.
Cool. So Air Journey sounds fairly hectic. Was that ultimately part of the reason you moved on?
No, I mean, they're well. It's a well organized machine. They've been doing it for many years. They handle all the stress and anything that can pop up very well. Mm-hmm. But it's a very stressful environment on the other end that people just don't even see what's going on in the background. I end up not getting any of the flying side that I was really wanting to do. So I felt uncomfortable there where I was, because I was like, this is what I signed up for, and I'm not doing this. So I need, and the other thing about Air Journey is it's not at an airport. You're in a nice high-end office building, but it just happens to be not in the airport, which I'm an aviation dork. I love being around airplanes. That year away from airplanes was just, I take my breaks and go watch airplanes land. So
Right.
I just wasn't back in the aviation world where I saw myself being. So I went back into the FBO business, an opportunity and become a customer relations manager there for about a year and a half.
Right. And did that opportunity come up before you left Air Journey, or you'd already made the decision that you were going to leave?
No, it came up. It came up before I left. As in anything in this industry, is networking and timing is key, and I've been blessed with both opportunities to build relationships, and just seems like I've hit the jackpot on the timing side. So that's, at least for me, that's what it seems like.
Yeah. No, that makes sense. On the networking side, this is a bit of an aside, but you strike me as the type of person who networks well. Was that something that sort of came naturally to you, or are there things you've worked on to take advantage to the greatest extent the networking opportunities you've had?
Oh man, no. I would say when I was in high school, I was an introvert, and it was kind of a social awkwardness for me until I got out in the real world, started working. I served at a restaurant, served tables, and that helped immensely to, the folks that are more sociable tend to get bigger tips. It kind of clicked there a little bit. But
good incentive to learn.
Really set me apart. What really set it apart was, I think, I was challenged by a friend to go to Toastmasters International, which it's a public speaking organization. It happens for me. It happens once a week, but I was doing every Wednesday morning before I'd go into work. And that's the way I would start my day while I was still at Showalter in college. I went to Toastmasters every Wednesday and had an opportunity to get up in front of a room and speak every Wednesday. And I'll tell you, for those that don't know Toastmasters, there is they call it a buzzer and a dinger in the back of the room that has electronic buzzer and electronic dinger. And anytime you say but, so, you're getting buzzed. And if you get buzzed, the speaker has to pay 10 cents for every time they were caught. And now if the buzzer doesn't catch you, the dinger is catching the buzzer, and then the buzzer pays money. So the buzzer never wants to not catch you saying that, because then he's out of pocket paying the dinger. So you get in front of a room and you have these buzzes and dings going off while you're talking. It just throws you for a big loop, and your concentration just gets all out of whack. It becomes nerve-wracking. But the best thing about it is that was on Wednesday, and it was always my most productive day. After a Toastmaster session, you go into work, you already failed in front of a room full of people of how bad you are, and you're your own worst critic on public speaking, or even speaking in general and on any kind of basis. So you're like, man, I really bombed that. So it can't get any worse today. It will not get any worse today. So
yeah, I did.
That really got me out of hell. Yeah. So it was that was the biggest moment of a social experiment for me that really got me kicking.
Wow. I did not know about the buzzing and dinging, but I think that's great. Having done a decent amount of public speaking.
They also
in the
have
past,
a table topics moment. So they'll do a table topics moment where they just give you, if you had $1 million, what are you going to do? Now you have to speak for a minute. And you're like, oh, well, now you have to put a story behind it. You have to come up with something on the cusp. So it's a fun little exercise. It's free to attend the first time. I would suggest anybody signing up and attending it for at least a year, but you can go to any Toastmaster and just be a guest and watch and see how it happens.
Wow. That's really cool. It's kind of public speaking oriented improv.
Yes.
So I also have to ask, how did the challenge from the friend come up?
What's that? What's the challenge from the friend?
You said you got into Toastmasters because you were challenged by a friend. Was there a story behind that, or they just,
It was a challenge. Yeah, the friend was looking. It was a professional, and they knew they needed it for their career, and they didn't want to do it alone. So they said, I was all, this is another thing where I say, don't say no. Here's an opportunity to say yes, take it. So it was that kind of deal. I went one day and I just, I loved it. And it's because that experience, I didn't say no to that experience. So
right.
I jumped at the opportunity.
How big are Toastmasters groups typically?
We had a larger group. We had, I think, in there anywhere from, depending on if people showed up, but it was 10 to 20 folks.
Right.
So ours was bigger. We had one of the ones in the Florida region. I would say other folks from around Florida would come and attend. And it helped for us because we had a bunch of comedians, I haven't attended any other ones, but we were told we always had the funnest group of comedians where people just took it so much light, they kept it light. So maybe I was just lucky that I found a great group, but it was a lot of fun. You laughed a lot. People had good and threw comedy in for the awkwardness. So.
Right. And did you speak every week or it was kind of a rotation thing?
Yeah, you have prepared speeches. So about 3 to 4 folks speak each week with a prepared speech. So anywhere from 3 to 5 minutes. And then everybody does a table topic. So everybody has an opportunity each week to speak, but it could be from 1 to 4 minutes, usually if you don't have a role. But there's plenty of roles where you can be the Toastmaster and you lead the meeting and they just rotate you through. So and then you can pick up other ones if someone, hey, they have a meeting, I can't make it this time. So they look for people to pick up. So, there's opportunities to pick up other kind of shifts or what have you, roles in the every day or every week. So, and most folks did, they jumped at the opportunity to speak in front of a room. So,
yeah, no, I think that's fantastic. I think public speaking is such a huge advantage, regardless of what industry or position you hold. So I think it's a critical skill.
It gives you breaks that fear of, that networking fear where you're kind of want to just be quiet in a corner. So.
Sure. So I think that brings us to your current position, which you're now general manager FBO at Desert Jet, correct?
That is correct. Desert Jet Center in Thermal, California.
Thermal, California is in the Palm Springs area. It's actually Jacqueline Cochran. So the airport's named after her. She lived here. She broke a lot of records here. So this is we're 117 feet below sea level. We're right in the middle of the desert. Cool. And so this was a move for you. And I think you were involved in actually setting up the FBO. But tell me a bit about how the position came around and why you decided to make a move for this one. If
Absolutely.
That was indeed why you moved.
Yeah. So I was in Fort Lauderdale and California was not even on my radar. I did meet Denise Wilson, who is an amazing businesswoman. She is well accomplished. She started a charter business 10 years ago. Always had a dream of opening an FBO. I connected with her at conferences, social media. So I was on her radar, and she was looking for someone to come out and open up a new FBO. She wanted to find the right person, and I actually did my interview at NBAA back in 2015 in November, and my interview was to work the Desert Jet Center booth all 3 days. So knew very little about the area, knew little about the company, knew folks behind it. Ultimately, Desert Jet has that culture that Showalter had that was always I've missed. It was that family style where everybody is here to help. Everybody has your backs. You're not afraid to fail. You're not afraid to give ideas. You have input. You're able to step up and make it happen. So I recognized that over those 3 days during my interview, which was a unique interview process. I worked with everybody from maintenance to charter to dispatch to sales to accounting. So it was a great interview process for me, and just to really get to know the company and see if I was a good fit. And it has that Showalter way that I was missing. And so it definitely has the small world feel of where the customer gets the best service that we can possibly think of, and we thrive on the service side. So I came out, and 6 months before we opened, we put together all the manuals and how this is going to look. We were delayed by the county of actually opening. We went through some processes with the county Our project has been delayed 2 years. We're back on track. Happy to say that we're back on track after learning a lot about politics and legal leases. It's been a growth year for me on the business side that way. Which Denise asked me, said, "What's your biggest weak points?" I'm like, "Look, I'm not strong on legal aspects, and that's it. It's like I know the business inside and out. I started as a line service. Showalter put me through pretty much everything in the gamut of the FBO world. So I'm confident in that. The only thing I'm not confident in is, when there's legal stuff and having to deal with those kind of things. And guess what? That's what happened in the last 2 years. Is I learned a lot about politics, a lot about legals, a lot about leases, a lot about just being on the right side of the contracts and what have you, and taking people's word for it sometimes is not the best deal. You have to really do your homework and not trust folks, especially in the government. You have to really push it forward, it's the stubbornness. You prevail. You see challenges and you step up and you don't give up. And that's one of the biggest things that I see in Denise is that she never gives up. And that's why she has a maintenance business, why she has a charter business, a detailing business, an FBO. She's definitely a leader in this industry, which I really respect and appreciate.
Yeah. Those are sometimes things you wish you didn't have to learn about, perhaps, but necessary, no doubt. The interview is pretty unique, I think. I haven't heard of similar. So I'm curious to learn a little bit more about it. What were you told basically ahead of time? And then how did you prepare for, as you said, a unique interview?
Yeah, it was, I got the call on a Friday before the conference and said, "Hey, I have this great opportunity. I think you're a good fit. But I want you to come out and meet with the team. And by the way, I want you to work the booth. Everything's paid for. You just have to work my booth." Again, I said, "You know what? I'm yes." It's the ultimate thing of saying yes. An opportunity like that is pretty much once in a lifetime. So I said yes. I came out and I just prepared about the area. I just Googled the area. I didn't know anything about the desert in California. Didn't even realize Coachella Music Festival is 2 minutes away from here. Didn't know, hey, I heard of Coachella, but didn't know what it was. Didn't know, so I'm learning about what makes this area so popular. Why is there so much business and so much traffic that comes to an airport that doesn't have a tower, an airport that a town that's no one's ever heard of. So I had to do some homework on that side. I scoured the web. I scoured Desert Jet's website. I Googled the area. I did everything I could. I reached out to friends that were that knew the company, friends that were working at the company. It was, I did my homework, and then I knew that, hey, what's the worst going to happen? What's the worst that happened? I don't get the job, but I didn't have the job in the first place. So I know how to work a convention booth. I've been doing it for since about 2008. So I know people. I know this industry. I have lots of relationships. It was very serendipitous. Desert Jet Center, actually, before I was even came out for the interview, they signed on with Epic Fuels, and their fuel rep was a guy I worked a line with over NBAA in Orlando back in 2001. So when we hosted the static display, we would at Showalter we would hire, or we would bring on, reach out to our 20 group. We had FBOs all across the country, and we would bring the best of the best line service from those 20 group FBOs, and they would send their best down, and we would put them up in a hotel, and they would work 3 weeks with us, working line service, 12-hour shifts. Well, it just so happens back in 2001, Jared Fox, me and him worked the line together. We had 12-hour shifts. I spent 3 weeks with him on a tug, and fast forward to the interview, Jared Fox is Desert Jet Center's fuel rep. So it was industry coming back to itself. And I knew people immediately. So Jared introduced me to everybody that I needed to know on the Epic side. Having those relationships, it was a big, huge help. So
Right.
it wasn't an interview. It wasn't an interview at all. It was more of a, finding your place and just being yourself.
Right. And you mentioned you had lots of experience working booths and static displays. What do you do at shows like that to make your time there successful?
Well, I mean, if you even take the NBAA, it's the fifth largest convention in the United States. So in size, so it's a large convention, and you're one person. So I really owned relationships and folks. So I introduced myself to everybody, but also I'll tell you that icebreaker, having B-Rad on your name tag actually helped out a lot. It stopped people in their tracks and says, "Does that really say B-Rad?" It puts a smile on their face, and for whatever reason, they always remembered that. And just having the Showalters, have your back and introducing you to everybody. They didn't treat me like an employee. They treated me like a family member. It was, Bob can be meeting with the president of NBAA or the president of Dassault Falcon, and he would introduce the people around him. That's Bob's meeting. Or Kim would do the same. It's like, this wasn't Kim's meeting. Hey, I'm the president of the company, but everybody I'm around is important. And she would introduce everybody around her. And that really stuck out, and that really helped me. And I really appreciate that. And I pay it forward every day in my life here, working at Desert Jet Center as well.
Yeah, that's a unique quality, but I think everyone knows a few people like that, and I think a large amount of their success is due to that type of attitude, and they generate a lot of positive karma, or whatever you want to call it, loyalty, I think, too, because of how they treat people.
Yeah, the respect. Yeah, this industry is built on respect, and if you don't have it, then it's a tough thing to get.
Yeah. So I know you want to talk about service as well. So maybe give me your opinion on whether the aviation industry has lowered their standards or service expectations, and why. And then after that, we can talk a bit about what you think can be done to change it and what you're doing at Desert Jet.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, service is king, or it used to be king, right? You have big box retailers that are putting out the smaller guys that, you get the greeters, you get the folks there. You can see it happen in our industry. 16 years that I've been doing this. Go back to the Showalter days of that. I mean, they started in 1945, and that was their mission statement was to it was all about the customer. That's the reason that we're here, is the customer pays our bills. So, and actually Showalter, it has, I think they have quite a few recognitions and some customer service books. One, I think it's T. Scott Gross, Positively Outrageous Service. And they have a whole story about that specific author would taxied into Showalter one day in his Mooney. That he's a writer. He was flying around. He actually taxied in to Showalter, and it stuck in his mind so much that he wrote about him. So that really stuck out in my way back to the Showalter days, and that really stuck around. Like, man, they do something absolutely just outrageous, and people like it.
Yeah.
So that's how that came around. So I've always been part of an independent FBO, because I feel that's the roots to the FBO world here, is that you're expected to get that kind of service. That's what the folks are really expecting. But now that we have so many FBOs being bought up by bigger chains and sold out and what have you, that the expectations on a corporate level don't make it all the way down to the frontline level. And that's something that you can go on any aviation forum or social media outlet that has a pilot outlet, and you just keep your finger on the pulse of what pilots are saying or what dispatchers are saying. You keep your finger on the pulse of what's going on, and it just seems maybe there's just a bigger window of people or to express themselves about bad service. But it just for me, even as a pilot going to other places, my expectations are pretty high because I have high expectations for myself. So when I have high expectations, I share that with the folks that I'm flying into other places that, hey, I didn't have a marshaller out here. I want someone to park me. I want, I want someone to greet me, help me down. If I have a passenger, I want you to help them off the steps. Those kind of things that, take the bags. Don't just, take the passengers, walk away and, oh, we're good. It seems like I'm reading a lot more about that. Maybe it's just the position I'm in, but for a long time since the FBO's been selling out, that pilots have been accepting a lot less service as well. That's what I'm thinking it comes down to, is that expectations have been lowered from the operation side, that they're just expecting a low fuel price, not the service. They'll complain about service but they'll take the low fuel price. So they'll go next door to a low fuel price while the person they've left is giving a better service. So that's, I think, is the bigger issue. And that's why the independent guys are selling out, because they can't keep their margins up, but they want to give you the best service. So folks are going down, they're passing the service down the road for cheaper fuel prices.
Mm-hmm.
So
what do you think can be done to change it there?
That's interesting. It's tough because there's so many big chains out there that it's a top-down approach. I think it starts at the top, and something needs to change from the top side, so folks know what to look up to. I don't think there is the experience levels, and at least on the FBO side. I know there's other things out there, whether other vendors, fuel programs, or software developers out there that do software for aviation. I just the customer service side of listening to the customer and anticipating the customer needs, not the other way around. Wait till something happens before you make a change. You're forward looking and saying, if I do this, how's this going to affect their service, or how's this going to affect their operations? It's after the fact. And that's things that we're doing here, is that, we have pilots that help train our staff. Our staff has some of them have pilot's license. If they don't, we sit them down and we do some basic training on just what pilots' expectations are. We're lucky enough to have a charter department that we have a fleet of airplanes that have pilots flying. So the pilots give us direct direction on a constant basis, like, hey, I would like to see this, or hey, I went here and they did this really great. You guys could do something like that. So we're getting feedback immediately for us. We're able to take what our folks are seeing on the road or seeing what their expectations. So we're able to change things immediately from hearing our pilots, and we have the ability to force it out of our pilots. I think is to, hey, I really want to make sure I'm doing this right. You need to give me some feedback. You can't really go to a customer outside and say that. We should be able to, but it seems like a little tougher. You might offend the customer if you ask him how you can serve them better. And that's what it comes down to, is that I think our pilots are, the pilot world out there is just lowering expectations for a lower fuel price.
Mm-hmm. No, that's pretty interesting. That is very useful. You can get feedback from the pilots like that. And I think it's great you're trying to incorporate it as well.
But you have a big box guy, big box. You got a big chain that's where does that start? Does that start, at the frontline level, or, how does that get fed to everybody else? you have one passionate guy that, someone like that was like me 16 years ago that always wanted to be a pilot. And so I'm just a sponge. I would absorb whatever the pilots told me, and I would ask them questions. We need another generation of that, where we have folks outside that want to be mechanics, that want to be pilots, that want to be dispatchers, that they want to be involved in the aviation industry. We need to spark something that we can get folks in here that are passionate and want to learn, and then we need to be good managers or good companies and train folks the right way. Have the expectations that we expect and train for that. But if we just keep kicking the can down the road, say it at least, is that we go on social media and we complain about it, but that person never hears that story. Is that going to change anything? It's may just say, hey, I'm not going to use that service again, and neither are these folks. So, but until the actual service vendor hears about it, are they going to change anything? So I'm always out there, and that's what I'm looking for. We're asking our customers, we're out there, where our customers are talking and posting. We're keeping our pulse on the industry here, and trying to be, our foresight is on the service side of what the expectations really are, but where should they?
Right. So I think we've gone through a bunch, and there's obviously a bunch of things that you've done well, I think, that have led to your success. And you've mentioned a variety of them, from saying yes to everything to being passionate about what you're working in and learning and taking feedback from people and working on communication skills. That is a bunch of things. So this might be a moot question, but through all the different positions you've held in aviation, were there any other habits or skills that you developed and have you found to be useful and contribute to the success you've had?
Yeah, I mean, it's every position, every job that I had, I've always taken it as a learning potential. I looked at what great leaders I had, why I was in positions, what worked effectively, what didn't work effectively. Being a general manager, this was a big step for me. I didn't have anywhere near, I had 15 employees that come to work today and work really hard and believe in what I believe in. I have to express that to them. That's the toughest thing, is to, I'm blessed to have such great people surrounded by me, that believe in the same vision that I believe in, that Denise believes in. The leadership side, I think, was one of the biggest things that for me is now I'm looked up as a leader, where I was just, hey, I'm that social person that goes out there and gets the business, that goes out there and is not afraid to fail. But, looking around at it at a different way is that now I have folks looking up to me. Right. So that's been the biggest change for me, is that I now have to be cognizant of, if I make this decision, how's that going to affect others, that I do below me or that are working for me. And, I couldn't be here without the folks that, my team, it's a whole team side. So it's that whole leadership side it's a pressure. It's a pressure of making the right decision all the time. And, even when someone's not looking, you have to make the right decision. And I learned that from, the 12 years I was at Showalter. It was, looking back on it now as the GM here, I start to understand a lot more, kind of like a youth looking at their parent as they're getting older. So, right. It's been an interesting learning experience where I learned things in my past that I didn't even know, I didn't even have I'm never going to use this again kind of thing. And, 15 years later, I'm putting it into work and on writing a lease or in those kind of things, or, hey, how's that going to affect if if I can't make my employees happy, how are my customers going to be happy? And it's like, you never think of it that way when you're the actual frontline person. It's like, man, they were doing everything they could to make us happy as a frontline employee, making, hourly wages. So now I'm now in the other part of how do I make my team happier? Because if I make my team happy, my customers are going to be happy.
Right. Yeah. That reversal of roles kind of gives you a new perspective.
Yeah.
Okay. So I know outside of aviation, which it sounds like aviation is your whole life, but sort of outside aviation, as I think you do in your work, you love studying business in various forms. And you mentioned you watch shows like Shark Tank and listen to podcasts and read and so on. I know you're a big fan of the Tim Ferriss show. So in that spirit, if you're up for it, we'll wrap up with some rapid fire questions inspired by Tim.
Scary.
So first of all, aside from the Tim Ferriss show, which I'm also a big fan of, are there any other podcasts you listen to on a regular basis?
I try to get into some comedy as much as I can, just to keep it light. So I can find some comedy. I'll go through Spotify, what have you, and find something that seemed interesting. That's whether it be a stand-up or a podcast that's folks that I follow have recommended. But it's mostly either going to be music or podcasts or of Tim Ferriss, but that's one of the biggest ones.
I really need to explore Spotify more because there's a bunch of stuff like comedy and so on that I always forget sort of is on Spotify. If you're looking to be, what kind of music do you listen to?
I listen to everything.
Do you have types of music that you listen to in specific situations, or it really varies a lot?
It's a total varies, but it's all, everything I listen to. I try to keep it upbeat. It gets me in a positive setting. Could be from anything from Michael Bublé to some new country to some heavy metal to even some rap and some EDM. So yeah, it really is. My friends call me, I'll play radio, and they call me DJ ADD because I always flip it around. So.
Okay, fair enough. When you think of the word successful, who's the first person who comes to mind and why?
Right now, Denise Wilson. She's has one of the fastest growing aviation companies in the industry. When I moved out here 2 years ago, it was we had 22 employees. We're over 55 employees now. We're creating positions, filling positions. We're creating more jobs, more opportunities that we see. It's the visionary that she has and brings to the table is success for me. It's like we need to take less off her plate so she can be more visionary and help the company grow. It's quite amazing to see the process in the last 2 years.
Sounds exactly like the person you want as a boss. What are some books that have had a large impact on you?
Raving Fans, and I forgot the author right offhand, but Raving Fans, customer service based. We've done, we've had some other folks here that that we follow a process here at Desert Jet. So we required everybody in our company to read what the heck is EOS, and it is an operating system for a company. And we do, if you read the book, you'll see there's level 10 meetings that we have, and we follow that. So we read about business, and then we put implementation into it. So really, it changes on a monthly basis of what book I'm reading, but right now we're following this EOS system that Desert Jet has. And when I started, it was the visionary side of it, it really puts everybody on. We say we're on this train that's facing forward, and so everybody gets on the train, they face forward. And this operating system for company is what keeps us looking forward. So we use it's a book called Traction that works with What the Heck is EOS, that goes into it as well. And it's just been it's been interesting to implement, read and implement things from an actual book and what have you. So
right, that's cool. I'll have to check that one out.
So, yep, Traction, and What the Heck is EOS, and they have a lot of other books behind it too.
This is the same Traction, like the 19 marketing channels. Is that the one?
Let's see. I'm actually having to Google. Yeah, you have Traction and Get a Grip. It is the Gino Wickman.
Okay. We'll put these in the show notes too. So cool. I have to ask now because you mentioned it. What does your morning routine look like?
I knew it. If it's going to be a successful day, the first 5 minutes I'm out of bed.
Yeah.
First 5 minutes I'm out of bed. I'm moving. Get away from the bed. I turn on music. I turn on a podcast. Tim Ferriss. I listen to other morning routines, and I've implemented that into my system. So I start the coffee. I do French press almost every day of the week. I start getting moving around, and then and of course I come back to get a cup of coffee flowing, and I look at emails. And then I just get ready for the day. I see what's going to happen, what planes we have flying in. We have all our services staged, whether it be rental cars, limos. So we have all that stuff confirmed. I start looking at that. I see what we did the day prior. Take a very close look on how much fuel we pumped. In my favorite days are when I wake up and I see a new comment on the flight planning pages, AirNav, flightplan.com, for flight. Those are some good days when you see some comments. We're getting a lot of good traction from customers that are reading those, and now they're coming to us because they're seeing the things that we're doing on the service side. So I read those, and it gets me pumped up for the day. So that's my typical thing is really looking forward to, hey, what have we done excellent in the last day or so?
Yeah, cool. That sounds like a good morning. What is the worst advice you hear being dispensed in the business aviation world?
Oh, say that one again.
What's the worst advice you hear being given out in the business aviation world? Or just poor advice
Worst
in general?
Advice. Right. Man, that's
We can come back to
you're
it.
stumping me. Yeah, let's come back to that one. I'm getting stumped there.
And to be fair, you kind of mentioned it earlier, right? Which I think is a focus on margins and profit at the expense of customer service. That could be be a good answer to that one.
Yep.
Do you have a quote you live by or think about often, or one that you've been recently thinking about?
Yeah, what is it? I'd say, the definition of luck is when opportunity and experience meet.
Right. That's a good one.
I'm very lucky.
Right.
I've had lots of experience, and then the timing has just been epic for me.
Right. And I guess you have to be able to recognize that too, right? Last question. If you had to give a smart, motivated person entering the business aviation world some advice, what would it be? Or what advice should they ignore?
Oh, I mean, I see out there, ignore that when folks say, don't get into this industry. it's avoid it. You know, whether they've had hard times through the industry, they're still part of it. It's what really floors me is that they tell people don't get involved in this side, and it's why would you say that? Don't give them any kind of, you know, it's sometimes things happen for a reason, but so ignore that. And for on the positive side is that there's opportunity here. There's lots of opportunity here. And the folks in this industry, they take ownership in seeing others excel, seeing others grow. I've met many mentors in this industry that want nothing but to see successful people work their way up. So work hard, you know, don't say no. It's hard work goes a long way. Don't have expectations that you're entitled to a job, a position, a title, a salary. It takes hard work, and you will get there if you believe it and you trust others that have good reputations, that you're not in it for a quick buck. You will excel.
I think that's a fantastic way to end. And I have to say, like, I haven't been in the industry long, but that's certainly been my experience thus far. People have been fantastic and really do take an interest in bringing new people in and seeing them succeed and helping them network and meet other people as much as possible. What's the best way for people who want to reach out to you or find you online?
DesertJet.com. You'll see the about page. You'll see all our fun faces there. You can find me there, Brad at DesertJet.com. We're on Instagram. Look up Google Desert Jet. We're on Twitter, Desert Jet Center. I'll see you guys on Facebook if you're there. Follow us on all those good outlets. We have fun pictures. The desert is an amazing place. Come visit us during any of our big shows, Coachella, Stagecoach. We got the BNP Paribas Tennis Tournament coming up in March. It is 126 golf courses here, so I'd rather you fly in and see how beautiful this place is, and we'll greet you with ice cold waters at the bottom of your stairs.
Perfect. Awesome. Well, thanks so much, Brad. I really enjoyed this. And I'll see you next week, I guess.
All right. Sounds good. Yep. Let me know if you need any party invites or what have you. So we got it all lined up.
Awesome. Thanks very much.
All right. Take care.
Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for listening. I hope you enjoyed this conversation. Just a reminder, you can find show notes, links to everything we talked about, and more at leansystems.co/podcast. And I would encourage you to sign up for our email list to make sure you get notified about new blog posts and podcasts. See you next time.